Hollywood's golden age. The 1930s, 40s, and 50s. An era of glamour, elegance, and larger-than-life stars who captivated millions. These were the faces that defined cinema. The voices that filled radio waves. The performers who made us laugh, cry, and dream. But behind the velvet curtains and champagne toasts, a darker reality lurked. The studio system controlled everything. Contracts were ironclad. Royalties were non-existent. And when the cameras stopped rolling, many of these legends found themselves abandoned, forgotten, and broke. Today, we're diving deep into the tragic stories of Golden Age actors and singers who died in poverty. Some passed away in the 1990s and beyond, decades after their glory days. Others left us earlier, but their stories need to be told. These aren't just tales of financial ruin. They're stories of broken dreams, mental illness, addiction, and a Hollywood machine that chewed up and spit out its brightest stars. This is their story. This is the price of fame. Frances Farmer. If Veronica Lake's story is sad, Frances Farmer's is absolutely devastating. It's a tale that exposes the darkest sides of Hollywood, mental health treatment in mid-century America, and family betrayal. Frances Elena Farmer was born in Seattle in 1913. She wasn't just beautiful. She was brilliant, intelligent, outspoken, radical. She won a high school essay contest with a piece titled God Dies, that caused controversy for its atheistic views. She studied drama at the University of Washington. She was political, passionate, and uncompromising. Hollywood discovered her in 1936. Her first film was Too Many Parents. Then, Come and Get It, directed by Howard Hawks and William Wyler. She was nominated for major awards. She starred opposite Cary Grant in The Toast of New York. She worked with Tyrone Power in Son of Fury. But Farmer hated Hollywood. She hated the phoniness, the control, the way studios treated actors like property. She was vocal about it. She joined leftist political groups. She traveled to Russia in 1935. In McCarthy-era Hollywood, this would come back to haunt her. She also battled with her domineering mother, Lillian. Their relationship was toxic, abusive, and would ultimately destroy Frances. In 1942, everything fell apart. Frances was arrested for drunk driving, then for violating probation. She had violent outbursts in court. She was labeled difficult and unstable. Instead of getting help, she was institutionalized. What happened next is one of Hollywood's most horrifying stories. Frances Farmer spent years in psychiatric institutions. The conditions were barbaric. She was allegedly subjected to insulin shock therapy, hydrotherapy, and most horrifically, there are claims she underwent a transorbital lobotomy, though this remains disputed. Gail Russell. Some stars are destroyed by the very thing that makes them famous. For Gail Russell, it was her ethereal, haunting beauty and the crippling stage fright that came with it. Born in 1924 in Chicago, Gail Russell was discovered by a Paramount talent scout while still a student. She was stunningly beautiful. Dark hair, pale skin, enormous, soulful eyes that seemed to look right through you. She had an otherworldly quality that made her perfect for gothic roles. Her breakout role came in 1944 with The Uninvited, a ghost story that's now considered a classic of supernatural cinema. Russell played a young woman haunted by spirits. Her performance was mesmerizing. She followed it with The Unseen in 1945, another ghost story. Then came Angel and the Badman in 1947, where she starred opposite John Wayne. The chemistry was undeniable. Wayne, already a massive star, was captivated by her. They had an affair that would last years, though Wayne remained married. Russell should have become one of the biggest stars of the 1940s. She had everything: beauty, talent, screen presence. Butterfly McQueen. I don't know nothin' 'bout birthin' babies. That line, delivered in a high-pitched, panicked voice, became one of the most famous moments in cinema history. The film was Gone with the Wind, the year was 1939, and the actress was Butterfly McQueen. Born Thelma McQueen in Tampa, Florida in 1911, she got the nickname Butterfly after dancing in a production of A Midsummer Night's Dream. She moved to New York and found work in theater, including productions with the legendary Negro Theater Unit. Hollywood came calling. Her role as Prissy in Gone with the Wind made her famous. But it also typecast her in a way she would never escape. McQueen hated the role. She hated playing what she called handkerchief head parts, subservient, simple-minded black characters that reinforced racist stereotypes. She was intelligent, educated, and politically aware. But in 1940s Hollywood, those were the only roles available to black actresses. She appeared in other films, Cabin in the Sky in 1943, Mildred Pierce in 1945, Duel in the Sun in 1946. But they were all variations of the same stereotype. In 1947, McQueen made a decision that would define her life. She walked away from Hollywood. She refused to play those roles anymore. She said, "I didn't mind playing a maid the first time, because I thought that was how you got into the business. But after I did the same thing over and over, I resented it. I didn't mind being funny, but I didn't want to be stupid." Lana Turner. Lana Turner. The sweater girl. The ultimate symbol of Hollywood glamour. 7 marriages. Countless affairs. Scandals that would destroy lesser stars. And a daughter who killed her boyfriend in one of Hollywood's most shocking incidents. Born Julia Jean Turner in 1921 in Wallace, Idaho, the legend says she was discovered at Schwab's Pharmacy on Sunset Boulevard. Actually, it was the Top Hat malt shop across from Hollywood High School. But Hollywood loves a good myth. She was only 16 when she appeared in her first film, They Won't Forget, in 1937. That tight sweater she wore in the film earned her the nickname that would follow her forever, the Sweater Girl. Turner became one of MGM's biggest stars. Ziegfeld Girl, in 1941. Johnny Eager, in 1942. The Postman Always Rings Twice, in 1946, where her chemistry with John Garfield was electric. Peyton Place, in 1957, which earned her an Oscar nomination. Imitation of Life, in 1959, her biggest box office success. But Lana Turner's personal life was chaos. 7 husbands. 7 failed marriages. Artie Shaw, the bandleader. Stephen Crane, twice. Bob Topping, a millionaire. Lex Barker, who played Tarzan and was later accused of molesting Turner's daughter. Fred May, a rancher. Robert Eaton, a businessman. Ronald Dante, a hypnotist half her age. Each divorce cost her money. Lots of money. Then came April 4th, 1958. The night that changed everything. Turner's daughter, Cheryl Crane, then 14 years old, stabbed and killed Johnny Stompanato, a mobster and Turner's abusive boyfriend. Cheryl claimed she was protecting her mother from Stompanato's violence. The death was ruled justifiable homicide. The scandal was enormous. The trial was sensational. Turner's image never fully recovered. Betty Hutton. Murder. Murder. He's killing me. That's how Betty Hutton performed. Loud. Energetic. Explosive. She wasn't called the incendiary blonde for nothing. When Betty Hutton was on screen, you couldn't look away. Born Betty June Thornburg in 1921 in Battle Creek, Michigan, Hutton had a rough childhood. Her father abandoned the family. Her mother worked multiple jobs. Betty and her sister Marion sang on street corners for money. That desperation, that hunger to survive, fueled her manic performance style. She was discovered by a bandleader and made her way to Broadway. Then Hollywood came calling. Paramount Pictures signed her in 1942, and she exploded onto the screen. The Fleet's in 1942. Star-Spangled Rhythm, in 1942. The Miracle of Morgan's Creek, in 1944, directed by Preston Sturges. But her biggest role came in 1950, Annie Get Your Gun. Judy Garland was supposed to play Annie Oakley. But Garland's mental health and drug problems got her fired. Betty Hutton stepped in and delivered the performance of a lifetime. Anything you can do, there's no business like show business. I Got the Sun in the Morning. She was phenomenal. At her peak in the early 1950s, Betty Hutton was one of Hollywood's highest-paid actresses. She was making $150,000 per film, an enormous sum for the time. But Hutton had problems. She was demanding. She fought with directors and studio executives. She wanted control over her projects. In 1952, she refused to do a film unless her husband, choreographer Charles O'Curran, was hired as the director. Paramount refused. Hutton walked. That decision ended her career. She was 31 years old. The 1950s and 60s were a nightmare. 4 failed marriages. Addiction to prescription pills and alcohol. Suicide attempts. She declared bankruptcy in 1967. The woman who once made $150,000 per film was broke. In 1974, a Catholic priest found Betty Hutton working as a cook and housekeeper at a wrecked. John Gilbert, Hollywood's silent king who died forgotten. John Gilbert was once the most powerful romantic star in Hollywood. In the 1920s, his name alone could sell out theaters. Tall, handsome, and intensely emotional, Gilbert was known as the great lover of the silent screen. Audiences adored him. Studios feared losing him. And MGM paid him one of the highest salaries of the era. But fame in Hollywood is fragile. When sound films arrived, everything changed. Rumors spread that John Gilbert's voice didn't suit talkies. Some say the studio deliberately sabotaged his sound debut due to personal conflicts with powerful executives. Others believe audiences simply moved on. The truth is, his career collapsed almost overnight. Gilbert struggled to adapt. Roles disappeared. His income dropped. Alcohol became his escape. Once surrounded by luxury, he slowly slipped into isolation. By the mid-1930s, Hollywood had forgotten him. In 1936, John Gilbert died suddenly at just 38 years old. No grand funeral. No standing ovation. Just silence. A man who once ruled Hollywood, reduced to a tragic footnote in film history. John Gilbert's story is not just about fame lost. It's a warning that Hollywood can make you a god one day and abandon you the next. Judy Garland. Judy Garland was born to entertain. From childhood, the world saw her smile, but few saw the pain behind it. At just 16, she became a global icon in The Wizard of Oz. Her voice, her innocence, her vulnerability. Audiences fell in love instantly. But behind the scenes, Hollywood was ruthless. Studio executives controlled her body, her sleep, even her appetite. She was given pills to stay awake, and pills to fall asleep. A child trapped in an adult industry. As she grew older, the roles became fewer. The pressure became heavier. And the addiction became impossible to escape. Despite personal struggles, Judy never lost her magic. Her performances in concerts and films were raw, emotional, unforgettable. When she sang, the world listened. But fame couldn't protect her. In 1969, Judy Garland died at just 47 years old. The voice that once carried hope was silenced too soon. Judy Garland's story is not just a Hollywood tragedy. It's a reminder that behind every smiling star, there may be a broken human being. Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe was not just a movie star. She was a symbol. Beauty. Desire. Hollywood itself. But Marilyn Monroe was not her real name. She was born Norma Jean, a quiet, fragile child who never knew stability. Foster homes. Absent parents. Loneliness shaped her long before fame ever found her. When Hollywood discovered her, they didn't see a person. They saw a product. The blonde hair. The breathy voice. The smile designed for the camera. Marilyn played the role the world demanded. But off-screen, she was deeply insecure, intelligent, and emotionally wounded. Studios controlled her image, her contracts, and her freedom. She was mocked for being dumb. Even though she read literature, studied acting seriously, and wanted to be respected as an artist, behind the glamour were sleepless nights, anxiety, depression, and a dangerous dependence on medication. Her marriages failed. Her friendships were unstable. and the pressure of being Marilyn Monroe became unbearable. The world loved her body, but ignored her pain. In the early 1960s, Hollywood turned cold. She was labeled difficult. Work slowed. Isolation deepened. In 1962, Marilyn Monroe was found dead at just 36 years old. Officially ruled an overdose, but surrounded by mystery, rumors, and unanswered questions. Millions mourned her death. Yet few had truly known her. Marilyn Monroe's story is not about beauty. It's about exploitation. About how fame can magnify loneliness. And how the world can worship an image, while destroying the human being behind it. She became immortal, but never found peace. Jane Mansfield. Jane Mansfield was created to be a replacement. When Hollywood wanted another Marilyn Monroe, they chose her. She was beautiful, bold, fearless in front of the camera. But Jane Mansfield was more than just a blonde bombshell. She had an IQ of 163. She spoke multiple languages. And she dreamed of being taken seriously as an actress. Hollywood never allowed that. The studio system pushed her into exaggerated roles, revealing dresses, public stunts, a carefully manufactured image designed for attention, not respect. Jane played along. Fame came fast. Money followed. But credibility never did. Behind closed doors, she was deeply insecure. She feared being forgotten. And she worked endlessly to stay visible. As tastes changed, Hollywood moved on. The roles stopped. The spotlight faded. What once made her famous became a joke to critics. Desperate to remain relevant, Jane turned to low-budget films, nightclubs, and publicity scandals. Her career declined rapidly, but her need for approval never disappeared. On June 29, 1967, tragedy struck. Jane Mansfield died in a horrific car crash at just 34 years old. The media sensationalized her death. Even in death, she was reduced to shock value. Her children survived the crash. One of them would later become famous. Mariska Hargitay. Jane Mansfield's story is not just about beauty or fame. It's about how Hollywood builds women up, only to tear them apart. She was intelligent, talented, and deeply misunderstood. Jane Mansfield wasn't destroyed by failure. She was destroyed by an industry that never saw her as human. Veronica Lake. Let's begin with one of Hollywood's most iconic beauties. Veronica Lake. Born Constance Frances Marie Ockelman in 1922, she would become the ultimate symbol of 1940s glamour. That hair. That famous peekaboo hairstyle where blonde waves cascaded over one eye. It wasn't just a look. It was a phenomenon. Women across America copied it. The U.S. government actually asked her to change it during World War II because factory workers were getting their hair caught in machinery trying to imitate her style. Lake's breakthrough came in 1941 with I Wanted Wings. But it was her pairing with Alan Ladd that made her a superstar. This Gun for Hire, in 1942. The Glass Key that same year. The Blue Dahlia, in 1946. They had incredible chemistry. At just 5'2", Lake was one of the few actresses short enough to star opposite the 5'6" lad without making him look small. She worked with Preston Sturges in Sullivan's Travels, one of the greatest comedies ever made. She was in I Married a Witch, a fantasy romance that would inspire the TV show Bewitched decades later. By the mid-1940s, Veronica Lake was one of the biggest stars in Hollywood. But the fall was swift and brutal. Lake had a reputation. Difficult, temperamental, alcoholic. She fought with directors. She showed up late to sets. The studio system had no patience for rebellion, especially from women. By 1948, her Paramount contract was terminated. She was only 26 years old. The 1950s were a nightmare. Failed marriages, 4 divorces, mounting debts. Her drinking spiraled out of control. She took small roles in low-budget films. Then nothing. Hollywood forgot about her completely. By the 1960s, Veronica Lake, once earning thousands per week, was working as a barmaid at the Martha Washington Hotel in New York City.
Immagine.
A woman who once graced the cover of every magazine, now serving drinks to strangers who didn't recognize her.